Brodes Media.
Yeah, no, this is exactly how I wanted to spend my Friday night. Ripping the Eagles once again. And before you say, Brodes, you don't really have to do this. Yes, I fucking do. Yes, I do. My team is in shambles right now, and it was so obvious last season, and nothing has changed. There is so much dysfunction going on. It's an issue. It's not media making things up. We have a relationship problem between our quarterback and our head coach, and we have an issue, too, with Howie Roseman, who allows for this to happen under two straight head coaches. So the way that Laurie and Howie love to operate, by being in control, having all the power, being the ones with the final say, that is ruining the head coach role. It is ruining Doug Peterson and Sirianni. Whether they have enough to crack it or not is sort of a secondary thought here. The reason why these type of men are continuing to get hired from the Eagles instead of an Andy Reid, instead of a Mike Tomlin, instead of John Harbaugh. What happened is they got burned by Chip because they gave him too much too quickly, and now they are so afraid. They went the complete opposite extreme, and now we are stuck in this hideous position, and I'm sick. So realistically, I want to start off this show, and we have Jeff McLane audio because on his podcast, Uncovering the Birds, a part of Odyssey, and he obviously does an amazing job covering the Eagles for the Inquirer. He had some very interesting little nuggets there, two in particular that we are going to hear about. But I want to start off with my conspiracy theory. And I don't even think it's far-fetched. It's just using context clues. So when just about a week ago or so, we did the pod reacting to Jalen Hurts and his words towards Nick Sirianni and giving the head coach no love whatsoever, essentially throwing him under the bus, driving over top of him, then going in reverse, doing that move where you put your arm around the passenger seat and you look behind you. He ended up going in reverse, running over him again, going in drive, pushing the gas pedal down all the way to accelerate as quickly as humanly possible to run over him once more because he wasn't finished. So when we got done that pod, I'm so mad that I'm doing this again. And I'm mad at them for putting me in this position. I'm not mad at myself internally. I have every right to react. The conspiracy theory is, why did Jalen Hurts do what he did to Nick? And this is what I came up with. Yes, Jalen is frustrated with how the Brian Johnson saga ended. Not only ended, but what transpired through the entire year. Nick Sirianni was the offense last year. Brian Johnson was the face for Nick's offense. When things start to get really ugly, when that offense started to suck more than any offense ever sucked in my life, it was because of Nick. But Brian Johnson took the fall. And that pissed Jalen off. And the reason I come up to this conclusion is, if it was Brian Johnson and the head coach watched it crumble, I'd have to imagine you do something about it. The reason nothing was done is because the initial shitty offense was Nick's. So there was nothing for him to do because we were already digesting his scheme, his beliefs, his concepts, what he wants the offense to be about. There's nothing that could be done. So now I'm under the impression that Brian Johnson really couldn't have had that much of a role And even if he did technically call plays, and I don't even know if that is something that I believe in anymore, but even if he did call plays, if you are asking a chef to cook a gourmet meal and I'm giving you fucking, I don't know, rotten bananas, I'm giving you Brussels sprouts, and I'm giving you vegan hot dogs, and I say, whip me up something unbelievable. Those are your 3 ingredients. The hell is that chef going to be able to do? You're picking from nonsense when you look at that play sheet and that card on the sidelines as an offensive coordinator. So Nick sucked. Nick was awful. Nick was pathetic. And this entire town was ripping Brian Johnson to shreds. And Jalen took that personally. That's my conspiracy theory. Now, should I give Jalen a free pass for not just moving forward? No, I'm not giving him a free pass. This is a business. It is nasty behind the scenes. You're a pro QB. You're a face of a franchise. Guess what? By the end, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they were dealing with a lot of stuff because the egos got big, but you have to find a way. Trust me, there's never a situation that's smooth. Even when the Eagles won their championship, a ton of injuries, Carson Wentz goes down, things started to change. The dynamic was moving closer to the Nick Foles experience with the Shrine. That's in a year where they won the whole thing. There's always going to be some level of discomfort where there's 50-plus players, 5,000 coaches. There's always something. There was turmoil last year with the Kansas City Chiefs when Travis Kelce almost trucks over Andy Reid and puts his ass in the dirt in the final game of the year before they won a championship. So if you can't handle that, then I don't know if you have any business being the face of a franchise. And I love Jalen Hurts to death. I'm a huge supporter. I think he could play. But I'm having real concerns on if this is going to work. Because he handled it very immaturely. That's not how you do this if you're supposed to be a leader. And by the way, wasn't that targeted and emphasized as something that needed to be worked on? He needs to become better as a leader. He needs to be more in with the fellas and have these relationships and create these bonds, not only for his personal just approach as a leader, but that's also part of Nick Sirianni's core values. All jokes aside, that is something that he expresses like no other. If you care for one another deeply, you'd be more willing to go to football war and win that battle and look to the stall next to you and acknowledge it's time, baby, and you'll put in that extra mile because you are one. And yeah, in theory, that sounds amazing. So from the actual overall head coach perspective, and then from your own growth internally as a leader at this level, I need Jalen to do more. And his first chance at it to improve in that area, he took 6,000 steps back. He should have lied. Now, that's twofold here, because lying doesn't actually change the fact that there are serious issues behind closed doors at the NovaCare complex. So whether he lied or not, the real systemic problems are still going to occur, and you can't put lipstick on a pig too long. Eventually it will show its true colors, so you're not going to hide anything. Well, no, trust me, well, no. We will see on the football field how out of sync and how out of touch everybody is as a unit. We will completely understand that the dynamic sucks and the entire coaching staff is wonky as hell. Just like Brandon Graham mentioned last year, nobody was in the right positions to succeed. Well, the head coach isn't in a position to succeed right now because of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. You know, I mean, Nick, I'm pissed off at you too because it is what it is, but man, I can't stand the way you approach your job. But I'm also mad at the people who put him in position because entering this season, they essentially stripped all of his power and then asked him to still be, that figure that everybody respects. Well, you took his respect away and then told him to make sure that everybody has your respect. There's only so much you can do. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I wanted Jalen to lie, though, because part of your gig as the man, as the face, is to sell a product. What happens in the locker room, what happens when the media can't see, what happens behind the scenes, that's not for us. As much as I want it to be, as much as I would love to be a fly in the wall every single day that I could around the Eagles organization, that would be lovely. But reality is, some things have to stay in between those walls. And it's your job to do the best in your ability to keep it within those walls. And in a 3-day camp, in June, he decided to open up a can of worms. It wasn't by accident. We have so many fans coming up with their own conclusions. Well, I mean, he wasn't ready for that question. He wasn't ready to answer a question about the head coach who has a whole new role and explaining what it's like to be around the guy who was once the head coach with all the say with Shane Second. When they hired Nick, it wasn't about him being a great rah-rah guy. It was, I got the new shiny toy. I got that new young coach that everybody is going to admire and everybody's going to want to have in their complex when it's all said and done. That was what they said they wanted the second he was hired after Doug Peterson was gone. And that's not what we have sitting at this particular time of the Nick Sirianni era. It's not. It's not. There's so much dysfunction. But Jalen not being prepared. You come on. How are you not prepared? There's a PR team that knows every stunt that's coming, that knows every question. He wanted to respond in that way. And that's very unprofessional. Why, Jalen? Why? So let's listen to some of the audio cuts. There's two. They're very short. Both are just under 10 seconds. Here's the first one in regards to how he handled the Sirianni presser.
According to team sources, his handling of this question about Sirianni right before the Eagles parted for the summer disappointed several key figures within the organization.
Okay, so several key figures are now disappointed. Who could that be? Who are several key figures? I got 3 for you. And maybe I'll even throw in a 4th with Big Dom and his new title. All right, Big Dom probably ain't happy. Nick ain't happy. Lori not happy. Howie not happy. Because it describes the turmoil. That's real. Not made up. It's real. Listen, I'm a fan like anybody else. There's nothing I want more than a fantastic Eagle season that we are about to embrace. But last year doesn't happen if things are good, right? That was historic. Maybe you forget how tragic it was or how awful those losses were. That's an all-timer. Not just for Eagles history, which it is, but NFL history. 10-1. They finished with 11 wins. 10-1, finished with 11 wins. And started to get pounded. Giants beat you. Jonathan Gannon came into your own house and beat you. San Fran, the game that was highlighted all offseason long with everybody running their mouth talking smack, they came into your house and pantsed you. Then, okay, For some reason, some tried to chalk that up to, hey, it happens. I don't know how you get the doors blown off with that opponent, knowing how much shit was going back and forth, but whatever. Sometimes those type of stuff does happen. Whatever. You play Dallas next. Crushed. I mean, dude. Fucking crushed. That doesn't happen if there's respect for the one that is in charge. And every single time a story is released about the Eagles, for the last 4 years now, if you've been following what we do over here at Brodes Media, you know my mind goes to one thing, and that's Howie Roseman leaked it. Now, I'm aware that Jeff McLane and Howie Roseman are not essentially this. And if you're listening on the audio version, I'm putting my two fingers together and crossing it. They're not best friends. But that doesn't mean that sometimes his outlet and his sources aren't utilized. And maybe it was Nick and not Howie. Maybe Nick wanted it out there that he wasn't happy. So several key figures disappointed. One of those clearly is Nick. Maybe it wasn't Howie, it was Nick. My point is, though, why do they get it out to the public the way they get it out to the public? It's always about figuring out the intention. Jalen was intentional. I had to figure out my version of the conspiracy. I hate saying conspiracy because it makes it seem like you're reaching for something. But no, context clues. I'm using the context clues to put the puzzle together. I'm getting all the pieces. Well, now let's find the intention of why this was leaked to Jeff McLane. And the only thing I can come up with is, this is them telling Jalen, whether it's Lori, whether it's Nick, whether it's Big Dom being the voice of the front office, whether it's Howie, one of these key four men, or collectively as a group, wanted to let Jalen know that this was unacceptable and no one's happy about it. Well, here's a thought. Here's a wild thought. Maybe talk. Maybe actually have dialogue. Just saying. But this is where I go a step further. There was real conversation about if Nick Sirianni should be back or not at the end of last season. I'd have to imagine the one that was paid a ton of money at the quarterback position, Jalen Hurts, was asked about his opinion. What if he said no? No. Sorry. You want my opinion? He's not it. Lori, being the one that makes the final decision, takes it in, doesn't just spit in his face and act like his opinion has zero pop, but clearly not enough pop. So they bring him back, and now it all begins. Now it truly all begins. Sports Illustrated, I saw John McMullen write something, and he was mentioning that a separate team source told Sports Illustrated that Jalen Hurts' remarks, or lack thereof, before summer break was essentially an unforced error that has contributed to needless speculation. The wording of unforced error to me screams, let something slip. It was unforced, man. You didn't have to do it. It's an unforced error. You didn't have to go there. Right. It was a slip. But this is where I make the argument. When there's so much dysfunction, things slip. When everything is intact, when everything has closure and the lips are sealed and everyone's on the same page and you're all pulling in one direction, you don't have the error. You don't have the fraudulent slip. When you have the fraudulent slip, there's a problem. Now, I'm not buying the fraudulent slip because this was very thought out. There's no way Jalen, who is as smart as he is and has been drilled since going back to his college days about what media does. It's rat poison. He knows that the media, and I'm not agreeing that it's rat poison, but I'm telling you, that's the way that it has been described to him and poured into his bloodstreams. It's been injected into his mind that what we do is analyze his words heavily. So I don't think that he ever accidentally screws up because he is so prepared. He's normally over-prepared, always in the film room, always studying, always thinking about X, Y, and Z. He's always trying to prepare himself the best way on and off the field. Now, mistakes do happen, but I think that he's prepared for whatever moment he's in. I'm not talking execution on the field. I'm just saying prepared, doing the homework, things like that. Doing the homework, making sure that he feels he's in the right mindset, making sure that he consumed the information the best way he could prior to taking the field. If the scheme blows and the entire offense can't pick up a blitz to save their lives and the other team's defensive coordinator is absolutely annihilating Nick to death, then there's nothing you can do about it, even if you did prepare as much. So I'm not talking from that level. I'm just talking about the mind. And I know he takes that same approach to everything, including answers and media availability, and that's what he gave us. Now, let's go to the next clip, because this one's the first time I've ever heard anything like this out of the Jalen Hurts experience, and it's not good. Take a listen.
There was a player last year who had issues with Hurts. He's not on the team now. Maybe that lets Hurts, who's still only 25, assert his leadership more.
There was a player last year who had issues with Hurts. He's not on the team now. I don't think it's Jason Kelsey, okay? I don't think it's Fletcher Cox. I don't. Although, believe it or not, I still think both of them have some left in the tank. But Jason, for years and years, the speculation has been it's time for him to hang him up. And, I think both of them have been very vocal about Nick Sirianni and has given him a lot of love. But I almost wonder, is that just the nature of who they are as pros, right? Once again, you lie. Even if you're stepping away from the game, you still have so much connection with this fan base, so much connection for the logo. You still want them to succeed. When you listen to Hugh Douglas, when you listen to Ike Reese, when you listen to John Ritchie, they want the Eagles to pan out and root for them. So they're not going to try and throw the people who are in power, who they're close to. Well, Nick's not actually in power, but they're not going to throw him under the bus is my point. So maybe it was a lie, but I also think that when they're in the league as long as they are, they look at it differently. Not that they devalue the importance of a head coach, but they're just so wired about if I take care of my business, each snap, I got to win my snap. They are so wired and so great, and I got to win my next snap. I think they are so focused in that way that that's the way their mind works. So they'll never take shots at someone like Nick or anybody else. It's I need to win my play, and that's how they work in the trenches. And, so that's why if they're going to give Nick a bunch of love and not feel there's any reason to criticize, it's because of that mental makeup. But there's somebody who is no longer here that had an opinion on Jalen that wasn't very good. Now, that could be a problem of that person. I did not say much about Jalen. It could be Quez Watkins. And guess what? If it was Quez Watkins, I wouldn't give a damn. It could be Fletch. If it was Fletch, I'd give a damn. I don't think it's Fletch. It could be Hassan Reddick. Would I care? Yeah, I think Hassan Reddick's opinion of a locker room matters to me. Granted, right now, the Jets, but I'm not mad at him for him trying to get his dough. And by the way, real quick, let's just throw this in there. Just because he's handling the Jets that way, that's irrelevant to the Eagles. Because in my hypothetical that Howie should have done, you bring Hassan back, not to play on the last year of a deal. It was you Pay the man. You pay the man because he's a game changer and a game wrecker. So because he's handling Joe Douglas and the Jets a certain way, that shouldn't factor in at all to the way that you go back in time and study how Howie kind of read the room, because you should have gave him money. For 3 years, he's not 56 years old. He's still going to give you double-digit sacks. So you still screwed that up in my eyes. But, man, there's just so many layers getting back on track to this whole where are we with Jalen. There is so much smoke. And the last time with Carson and all this, there was a lot of smoke. And the reason why it went the direction it went is because there was real fire to that smoke. It's unbelievable we're here. And it's not going to stop anytime soon. I'm just giving you a fair warning. All right, let's go to the Anytime Hotline. We got calls. We got text messages. People reacting as they should. Let's take a listen and start off here with Amadeo.
Oh, boy, the Eagles just keep deciding to find a way to piss Hunter Brody off.
Yes.
My God. It just feels like right now, everything that's going on with this team right now, this offseason, just feels like it's a controllable, in my honest opinion. And the biggest controllable that could have been done was just not bringing back Nick Sirianni. And, you know, I don't blame Nick. Nick Sirianni was just put into a very position where it's a lose-lose situation for him. And it's, you know, I'm not defending him at any rate. Like, you know, he deserves all the criticism that comes to him. But it's a controllable situation to where you look at the front office. Why did the front office bring back Nick Sirianni? Like, it goes down to blaming Howie Roseman and Jeff McLane. Those two got scared of public backlash for firing another head coach in such a short time span. At this rate, it looks like right now it's coming back to backfiring, because now it's looking towards that Jalen Hurts does not like Nick Sirianni at all. And whether that's a personality issue of Jalen Hurts, I understand he's a very intelligent person, but all this stuff that comes out too, that makes me even question Jalen Hurts and some people not liking his personality. All that stuff that was coming about last year was very questionable.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. You nailed it. The reason why Nick is still here is because public perception of someone who was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, for a coach that made 3 straight playoff appearances. First year, I'll give him credit. Second year, obviously amazing. That year, last year, making the playoffs after that colossal failure. I'm sorry. I mean, we have to knock you more than we praise you for last season, even though you did make the playoffs. I'm sorry, right? We can't act as if that was a positive season moving in the right direction. It was absolute nonsense. So, no, I mean, you nailed it, man. And it's an interesting question about where should the blame lie, Howie or Jalen. I think it's a combination of both. I really do. Jalen Hurts needs to mature more. He just needs to. And you know, this whole talk about can you change a personality trait, can you not? You have to. You have to. Because this style isn't resonating with the room, clearly. Brandon Graham last season even talked about we go as Jalen goes. So sometimes when, you know, he's not having emotion or he's just on the sidelines, and he said it in a very Brandon Graham-like way, all right? It's not my tone. It's not my demeanor, so take that for what it is. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but we go as Jalen goes, and I think that's BG saying it in the best teammate-friendly way possible. You know, hey. So I started off being very anti-Sirianni and very pro-Jalen entering this season. Right now, I'm very anti-Nick, and I'm lukewarm on Jalen. Because if he's going to walk around like his shit doesn't stink, and he's by far above Nick Sirianni, whether he is or not, and there's pretty much 99.9% of the league that's above Nick Sirianni in regards to a pecking order, the way that he's handled it, it's rubbing me the wrong way. It's rubbing me the wrong way. And I'm a big fan of him. I don't think he stinks. I don't think he's awful. I think he has the ability to be a good quarterback in this league. Pat Mahomes? Maybe not. Can he be consistently a top 10 QB? 7, 8, 6. 1 year has that 1 year where he's 3, 5, 6. Yes. I believe so. Yes. But all this turmoil that's hovering around, I don't know if just Kellen Moore and his offense can change that. Because at some point, Nick's going to be standing at that podium with the film behind him, and he's going to be talking, trying to lead men. It's going to go in one ear and out the other, if it hasn't already. And my guess is it has already. All right, let's get to some text messages here. I'm a little bummed because no one left their name. Good text, too, but no names. Don't be afraid. Bill from South Jersey. Ken from North Philly. Something like that, and then we can create more of a relationship when you continue to text in. I like that, but I get it. I understand. You want to get the things off your chest. I get it. So, all right, people like you give Howie all the love, and when the team is dysfunctional for a second straight regime, you let him escape blame? I love you, Brodes, but fuck out of here. Oh, man. Come on, Brodes, open your eyes. By the way, Jalen Hurts can't read a defense. That's all too familiar to me. Cough, cough. Carson playing hero ball. Just go back and look at the tape in Seattle. I love that line. What was that line? I love you, Brodes, but fuck out of here. That's incredible. All right, so where do we begin with this one? Howie's not escaping blame. Howie is great with manipulating money. Howie is great with making trades. Howie's good with free agents. I don't know necessarily how to handle the drafting. I don't think it's as bad as what some think, but it's not as lovely as I would like at the same time. But it's good. It's better than what I think the average Eagles fan gives him letter grade-wise. I'm saying the average of Eagles fans, not an average Eagles fan, if that makes sense to you. But, yeah, he's not escaping blame. It's a problem. The reason why we are in this predicament is because of the way Howie Roseman wants all the say. So when you get these yes men and you get these puppets, it creates a fracture between the quarterback and the head coach, and it starts there. There's other problems, there's other issues, but does it start at the top with that philosophy? Yes, I think that is extremely flawed. What I disagree with you is, plus Jalen can't read a defense. By the way, Jalen can't read a defense, it was. So in 2022, he could read a defense. In 2023, he couldn't read a defense. He played poorly at times last year, but I also think it was a product of Christian McCaffrey is the example, watching on his couch and knowing instantly that there is a QB draw coming within seconds. The offense made no sense. The defense was 5 steps ahead of every offensive play. The offense couldn't pick up a blitz. There was no ability to even allow the receivers to run the routes, which were just verticals and all. Like, where is this going? Where's the development of the play? There's not enough time for it to happen because you can't pick up a blitz. And so I think the issues fundamentally from a scheme level made it seem as if, well, Jalen Hurts was more of a problem than he was, even though he didn't play his best ball. There's only so much you can do there. And that's why Jalen's probably mad, because the talk about his personal play stems back to Nick. Brian Johnson, family friend, OC, all those problems and all the national talk about Brian Johnson struggling, it all stems back to Nick. So Nick was the actual X and O, but not the face of it. And Jalen and his friend took the bashing. All right, next text here. Why are we blowing this out of proportion? What happens if they go to Brazil and beat Green Bay by 7? What if AJ and Devontae get the ball in space because Kellen Moore is wonderful? Are we going to make up stories then too? It's every personality that's ever walked into this city that has to deal with this. It's June and you're all bored. That's it. I don't know how you hide from this. I'm just as much as an Eagles fan as anybody else is. I love this team to death. This is serious. It's serious. How is it not? Jeff McLane isn't just taking things out of his ass. Guy's been around a long time. He's got some real sources inside. This is happening. There are several key figures mad at Jalen for what happened. That wasn't just pulled out of thin air. Who's key figures? It's got to be the 4 mad at the quarterback. They're not clicking right now. And are they not clicking because last year was so bad And now they're trying their best to get it back on track. So the natural progression of getting it back on track leads to some of this controversy and some of this, back and forth and trying to get right. And the process of getting right comes with bumps and bruises. You know what I call that? A defensive mechanism. That's a defensive mechanism. That's looking for optimism and hope when it's not really there. No, I don't think this is the process of Jalen and Nick becoming one. I think if anything, it's ripping them apart more. This is actually making more fractures happen. I don't think this is a blessing in disguise, so they're getting across these humps and they'll make it out on the other side eventually. I think this is straight up ripping the relationship into more pieces. All right, here's another text here. The only issue is Nick Sirianni. I am not mad at Jalen for speaking up. If Nick is losing the locker room, why should Jalen Hurts pretend that there is nothing wrong? He just let it be known, so maybe change can actually happen. Wouldn't this put pressure on the front office to move on from Nick? Do you think Howie, that's an interesting question. I never thought about that. With Jalen intentionally throwing the coach under the bus, is it because he knows the storm that's coming, which it has absolutely happened, as we're talking about it again, and we'll continue to talk about it? Would this put pressure on Howie to move on from Nick and get out ahead of this thing? Nick's not getting fired. Would Nick even get fired if they're 2-5? Doubt it. No, I don't think so. So I don't know. I'm mad at Jalen. Why should he pretend like nothing's wrong? It's a part of the job to sell a certain, what's the word? He needs to sell a certain image, even if it's not the image that's necessarily happening behind closed doors. I'll go back to Brady. I'll go back to Belichick, even though I hate using them as examples. But, it's like, hey, there's a problem. Hey, there's a problem. Hey, there's a problem. We all know there's a problem. Robert Kraft, he wants this guy, that guy. They, to my knowledge, and I don't go the ins and outs of it, Bill barely said anything. On to Cincinnati. His press conferences were a joke. But when you just hear Tom every game, you hear Bill every game, it's just the outside noise talking this, talking that, because there were probably real systemic problems happening. But Tom sells a certain image, sells a portrait. You got to come up with the portrait and be the face of it, regardless of what's happening. That's part of the quarterback leadership role. So I do have a problem with it. Yeah, I can't have my quarterback saying that about the head coach right before the season's going to begin, knowing what happened last year and how it all transpired. I'm sorry. That sits wrong with me. So, all right, everybody. Thank you all so much. And real quickly, if Nick Sirianni one day after the game said, Jalen sucked, Jalen was pathetic, I'd have a problem with that too. Be player, coach speak. I know that bothers me sometimes too, but that's the better alternative. I can't have you throwing your quarterback under the bus and say he's the problem. And he didn't. Nick did the complete opposite in Seattle. We didn't know until the whole AJ stuff happened that they just randomly decided to make plays themselves at the line of scrimmage. Nick didn't really throw anybody on the bus until that whole little sticky situation played out. All right, everybody, I'm done, I think. Happy Friday night, Jesus. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you on the next one.